this is Hannah with Hannah Crafted Gifts. A special hello to my fellow Sunshine SU demos. Thank you so much for being here with me today, and all of you, whoever you are watching, wherever you are. I'm going to be sharing some projects from the Gilded Autumn Suite, which is part of the August to December 2020 mini catalog as part of today's Stamp Along. The main card I'll be featuring, you've maybe already seen a picture of, and that is this card. So I don't know about you, but I personally find it maybe most challenging to create simple stamping projects, and I know Stampin' Up! Has been doing a lot with the hashtag Simple Stampin' this year. So I've tried to meet that challenge. I actually did enter with the hashtag once and was one of the lucky randomly chosen winners. So just a reminder, if you are practicing your simple stamping, put that hashtag simple stamping on it, follow Stampin' Up's guidelines for the challenge each month, and you could win product credit. So anyway, this was something I did for a class just a couple weeks ago with some brand new customers, so I really wanted to make it easy and accessible for them. So that's what I'm going to show you how to do today, and hopefully I'll talk through some tips and tricks on what I've found has been helpful with either new stampers or stampers who just aren't sure, or maybe are coming back to it after a while, or maybe sometimes you just want something simple because you don't have much time or you're on the go. And I'd love to hear y'all's tips and tricks too. So if you're watching this from a Facebook post or some other social media post, feel free to comment there. Or if you're watching this directly on YouTube, comment here. And as always, if you like this video, please check that you like it, and feel free to subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. So I'm going to turn the camera and we'll go ahead and get started making this card. At the end, I'll turn back around to show some other samples from this suite and to say goodbye. Okay, here we go. Alright, so once again, here is the card that we'll be making today. So to start out, I have a standard card base. I'll move the sample aside here, we'll bring that back later. So this is very vanilla cardstock because that's what matches this suite. And I've gone ahead and cut a whole sheet in half at 5.5, so cut on the horizontal 11-inch side. So that way I get this 5.5 by 4.25 piece, and I've scored it in the middle. I'm sorry, 11 by 4.25 piece, and I've scored in the middle at 5.5. So that's how I'm now able to fold it. And of course, if you're new to stamping, you want to be looking at the valley side of the score. So if you could feel this, there's a little indent, I call it a valley, and you want to turn your valley into a mountain. So I always show my customers is turn your valley into a mountain. That's because scoring breaks the fibers in the paper, and if you fold the opposite way, then you're breaking the fibers on that side as well, and it's just going to be less sturdy. Now on a card, that's not so important. When you're making boxes and things, that's helpful. So now I've got my standard 4.25 by 5.5 card base. So as soon as I've folded that, I'm gonna actually go ahead and unfold it. You could stamp it like this, but I find when I'm stamping outside the cardstock, which I really like to show that the image continues on, when I have it folded, sometimes the stamp doesn't quite stamp to the edge because it ends up, raised that little bit of width at the edge, and so you don't get as clean and crisp a stamped image. So I'm going to open that back up, and you can see I've got one piece of scrap paper here. I'm going to bring in another one, and I'm going to lay that right across that seam or fold down the middle that I just created. And there we go. Now I'm ready to stamp because I want to stamp all over the front of my card. Now for my card, I chose the acorn, but you of course could choose the oak leaf or the maple leaf. I think that's the leaves they are to stamp on your background, or a combination of the three. I chose the acorn because it seemed the most different, and so I knew that that's what I wanted to have in the center of my two leaves, and so that's what I stamped around the edge. Now I say all over your card front, but really you only have to stamp around the edges because of course you're going to have, I keep showing you this big banner in the middle with your sentiment and then those raised images. By the way, in the preparation for this card, if you saw my post and have prepared your supplies along, this is the sentiment frame, this piece of early espresso, which we'll get to in a few minutes. And these are what I called the image frames. This early espresso piece is your 2 1/8 by 4 3/4, and yours may be a different color, but again, I called that the sentiment frame because of course it has our sentiment on it. And then these image frame pieces are 1 by 1, so that's really easy. You cannot stamp them the wrong way. So anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm going to get my early espresso ink. I have the little ink spot from an old paper pumpkin that I just re-inked for my event. And I also inked a couple of Stampin' Up's fillable spots. I also printed a little label for them. And that way, every table, I had 3 tables at my event. We were being socially distanced outside. This was my first event since the pandemic, so I wanted to make sure to be extra careful. And so everyone had their own ink spot, so they didn't have to do so much sharing. So I'm going to go ahead and ink up my acorn. And for these background acorns that we're going to stamp, again, all over the edges of the card, I stamped off. So hopefully you can see on the video that those background acorns are not quite as dark as the ones on the 3 1-inch squares. You could actually stamp off twice and you'd have even more of a difference. But this is going to be a lot of stamping, so I'll try to think of things to talk about, but feel free to skip ahead if you don't want to see me stamp off and then stamp all these acorns. Before I get talking about other things, I will say you do want to make sure, of course, your acorns are going different directions. And actually, before I lose you, let me show you how I stamp along the seam here. Now again, some of you may be very advanced and this is like so basic for you, things you already know and have known for a long time. But again, this project is meant to be for the brand new stampers. I don't know if any brand new stampers are watching today, but even if they aren't, if you are a veteran stamper, I think it can be good to think from the perspective of a new stamper again when you're doing these projects. So you can see, because I have this piece of paper here, it did not stamp onto the back of my card. Now you could stamp all over the back of your card if you wanted to, but I just wanted to have it on the front of my card. So that's how that works. I'm going to stop bringing my ink pad to my stamp because that's just taking longer, even though I do like to do that, especially with the spots. And let's see, I'm going to hold it here so it doesn't make so much noise. So yeah, so I had my first event in a new place, my first event since the pandemic. I should go back to say, you know, just because it was in a new place, that meant it was also all new people I was stamping with, all of whom I think were new to stamping, except for a couple family members who I introduced this to a little while ago when I got into it. I've been a demonstrator now on and off for about 3.5 years, on and going strong this time, 3rd time's the charm, for about 1.5 years. So I am so grateful for all the people who've been supporting me, like my family, old friends and new friends. So, and you all for supporting me today. Thank you so much for being here for my first ever stamp along. I do tutorial videos on YouTube, as well as unboxing videos and project show and tells. I'm always doing something. It's just a matter of if I'm posting it or not. I don't know about you all who do these things, but I find sometimes it's hard enough to find the time to stamp, far less to then share it all. But I love to share ideas and both give and get them from others. So this idea actually for this card was inspired by some similar projects on Pinterest. Not exactly like this, at least not that I saw, but definitely some similar things out there. Again, I was trying to simplify even the simplest ideas I was seeing to make it really easy for everyone at the event, myself, and even more so my customers. So as I said in my intro, I'd love to hear y'all's ideas for simple stamping and stamping with new customers. Got a few more acorns to do, and I am doing my upline not proud. She taught me that when you are stamping basically your own designer series paper by putting all these images on the background, you move the paper, not the stamp, but I think it goes a little quicker this way, and I'm trying to be quick, believe it or not. So you can see I've done a lot of stamping off around the edge, but of course I'm going to have that piece here in the middle, and I want some acorns to disappear behind that as well. So I'm going to go ahead and add, even though I don't have to put any like right here in the middle where my sentiment frame is going to go, I'm going to add a few that will hopefully peek out from behind that, just like I have a few that are peeking out from the sides of the card. So this was the very first project that I did at this event I've been referencing with my new stampers. Oh, little mistake, didn't fully stamp there. Maybe my frame will cover that up. And it was probably the most stamping we did. I'm going to show you all the other projects we did at that event as well at the end. So even though this was the simplest, it was probably the most stamping intensive, but I wanted them to really get some practice stamping. And this is a great way for them to practice because, of course, their first stamps were happening on scrap paper, which I always recommend, but this one they had to because they were stamping off. And, you know, they were stamping background. So, again, if they made mistakes like I just did, that could be covered up. And look, yay, it is going to be covered up. Okay, so
all those acorns I just did, actually, not just my mess up, but all these are covered up. So I probably should have put this here to remind myself before stamping those where that would end up. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp probably just a couple more there real quick. And they'll look squished in the middle and they might even overlap, but as we just saw, we won't see them all. We will just see the little bits of them poking out. So, oh, and see, that one I didn't stamp off. Let's see, is that one going to be covered up too? Whew, okay, good. All right, so one more, hopefully where it will be seen. And again, you know, normally I wouldn't like that cluster of them there, but all I'm going to see is that little bit of one sticking out. Okay, so good. My mistakes are covered. I'm realizing I just want the teeniest bit there. I know I'm particular, y'all. I apologize. I am always the slowest stamper in the room, at least with all the people I've ever stamped with, because I am a bit of a perfectionist. Anyone out there can relate? Let me know. Okay. And yeah, I'm going to put one more little one there. If you're like, stop. I know. Sometimes you can take it that one step too far, but this is where you play and you decide what you're happy with. Okay, I think that's okay. I am going to stop. Oh, and I won't cap this yet because actually I'm going to bring my 3 sentiment frames in here. So I'm going to go ahead and move this out of the way for now. Move off my extra scrap paper that I was using. Actually, maybe I'll use that one instead because this one is so covered now, so I'll do that. So these are my 3 image frames. I hope I've been calling these the right things and not getting them confused. And like I said, because they're all 1 inch by 1 inch, you can't get it wrong. So you know you can't hold it the wrong way. And of course, you could do yours just like a straight up and down square, or you could do yours as a diamond, as I did. I like that, and I found it filled the card a little better for me. But you can do it however you like. I always try to tell my customers that. Even new stampers, I tell them, you know, if you are inspired and have the confidence to try something, I encourage you to do it. You know, do it even though it's different than what I'm saying I did for mine. Or you can follow me until you find that inspiration, that confidence. But whether it's, you know, my classes or the Stampin' Up! Kits, that's the thing. You can decide when you're ready to try your own thing. Okay, so I stamped my acorn because I already had that stamp going. I'll set that stamp aside. I'm going to bring my 2 leaves in here. Again, I think this is an oak and a maple. That's what my customers and I guessed. If you know better, please correct me. Whether you're watching this at the time of the Sunshine SU Demos stamp along or on replay, or you found this some other way, feel free to engage and comment. I love to hear from y'all. All right, and last but not least, last one. This one's really easy to line up because it is a straight up and down. You can have the top point of your leaf pointing to the top of the piece of paper and the bottom stem pointing to the bottom. Another basic to make sure you're letting your new customers especially know is to hold their stamp on their paper for 5 seconds. That was probably a lot longer. Ooh, and that's actually not my best stamp. So this is another good learning opportunity. The great thing with most of our stamping is paper's two-sided, right? Most of the time we can flip it over and try again. But yeah, holding for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to let that ink transfer. There we go, much better. And of course, teaching them about the ink pads. These Stampin' Spots are linen, so they really can't press too hard. But with our full-size ink pads, they are foam, and so they can really get in there and get too much ink and get themselves in trouble. That's actually going to happen with the next thing we're going to stamp. So I'm going to set these aside and pull in my sentiment frame to do the sentiment. And I am using the Whisper White pigment ink. I told my new stampers I really had faith in them because this is usually not the easiest ink to begin with. It can be a little tricky. It is that foam pad, so you do have to be careful how much you get on there. And it's of course hard to practice on white paper. So I actually had chipboard mats for my customers, and I told them to practice with the white on their mat because it was like a crumb cake color and they could see the difference. I did mount my block for their success. So this is the H block. And I put the sentiment down at the bottom so that all they'd have to do, let's see if I can do it, lean in. All they'd have to do is line the bottom of the block up with the bottom of their paper. Again, I used early espresso, and this piece is the 2 1/8 by 4 3/4. So if they lined the bottom of the block up with the bottom of the paper and stamped, it would be right where they need it to be to put their images above. The trouble is, it's an unbalanced block. Normally, you, of course, would want to have the stamp in the middle of the block so you don't get rocking and therefore shadows. But not bad. Okay, good. Lucky me. I have extra standing by in case it didn't go well. Oh, I hope you could see that. I just realized I might have been out of view. There it is. I promise that wasn't a trick to like swap in a good one. That would be movie magic at its finest. Okay, so I'm just trying to decide where to set everything now that my space is getting full. By the way, I probably should have showed this at the beginning. This is the stamp set I'm using, and maybe you are too. The Beautiful Autumn. It's the stamp set from the Gilded Autumn Suite. And of course, we're using the 3 main images. I call those the main images because they're the ones that have the coordinating punches, which I'll show you. Acorn, oak, and maple. And I did use that on some of the other projects that I'll show you. But yeah, you can see my space is full. I'm surrounded by like the entire suite and a bunch of scraps and all sorts of things I was doing to prepare. Okay, so as we know, the white pigment ink needs a little while to dry. Never tried to shake it dry before, but I've also never probably tried to do things this quickly. So I will set that aside for a moment and bring my card back in here. I can go ahead and fold this for good now. And I'm going to get my adhesive, which I just remembered. Okay. So I've got my messy, I say messy because like the bottle is messy from use, multi-purpose liquid glue. I will say actually for beginning customers, I don't know if you all have found this, I found this at my event. This can be a little messy for them. You want to teach them about this too. So some things I know I tried to say, I'm going to be careful not to smudge my white here, are a little bit goes a long way. I recommended they use the pen tip most of the time instead of the broad tip, at least for what we were working with. And yeah, just to put it a little ways away from the edge of the paper and not very thick, and that they could just go around the edge of the paper. I do sometimes go across it as well. But yeah, this glue can be messy, especially for people who aren't used to it. And of course, once it gets on your fingers, it's very sticky, so then you get even messier. But there's other options. One of my customers after the event did buy this glue and decided to just keep practicing with it, and then someone else decided they wanted to do the Stampin' Seal to have more of that like glue tape that really can't stick to you. All right, slip and slide in here. That is one nice thing about this as opposed to the seal, of course. You have a little bit of wiggle time. I'm not going to rub my finger along that sentiment because I'm sure it's still drying. Of course, I told them our usual ink, most of our ink, dries almost instantly, but the white takes a little more time. All right, so there's that. Now I just have to put dimensionals on the back of my images. So you can see my first attempt there. Now, I just use one dimensional. I am a pretty frugal dimensionaler. I watched a video recently of Tanner, our Southeast, what is he, development manager? Is that what his title is, I think? And he was saying he's a very generous dimensionaler. So you can, of course, use as many as you like, or as few as you like. But I'm just using one I find for these 1 by 1 inch squares. That is fine. All right. Now I don't remember if I put these down, whoops, in the order that I wanted them. So let's see. Like I said at the beginning, I want my acorn, I want my acorn in the middle. And I think I'm gonna, do I want to start with that one? I'm gonna go for it and hope I get it in the middle. Now, here's something I do with dimensionals. I find you do have a little time, especially if you don't really push down the first time, to restick them if you have to. So I'm gonna put tip of diamond to tip of diamond here. Sorry, my hands are a little beat up. That's a product of dryness in the cold weather that I'm having where I am. I am not in Florida. I'm currently elsewhere where it actually is kind of more traditional autumn. And also partly just, the wear and tear of crafts and my day job. All right, so there you go. So I actually do think that placement's pretty good. I have pretty even margins on either side and above and below. So I'm going to go ahead and push those down right where they are. And that is it. So my original, and let me move my glue, and mine that I just made here with you right now. I did a lot more acorns, I'm noticing, on my one from right now, today, tonight, whenever you're watching. But they're a little lighter than the first time, which I like, because again, I'm getting more of that difference between the stamping off in the background and then the full ink image in the foreground. So there you have it. So I'm going to flip the camera once more and show you some of my other samples. So hold just a moment and I'll be right back with you. All right, so I want to show you those other samples that I've been promising. So one more time, here was my original for the project we made together tonight, or today again, whenever you're watching. Here's the one that I made just now with you. I'd love to see yours, by the way. Put pictures of yours in the comments. That would be fun. I want to see what different things you might have done. So the next project I did at this last event was this card. So we went from the most simple, just stamps, ink, and paper, to adding the designer series paper, using the punches, which I pre-punched for them, again, partly to keep it simple for my new stampers and also to reduce sharing because of the pandemic. And once again, we used Whisper White, but they did a good job. I taught them how to do just the little banner snipping by snipping up in the middle and then going from corner to cut. And this card was originally intended to be a spinner card, but I found it didn't work for some reason. And if anyone else can solve that mystery for me, I'm still not sure why. My best guess is that these images, at least, if not this one as well, were a little too small to really get a spin going. I tried everything I could think of, but I decided it's just a flutter card, which I've never heard of. Maybe I just created a thing, I don't know, and hopefully you'll be able to kind of see this. But you know, if there was a nice autumn breeze, I don't know if you can see that, but this leaf, at least because it has a little bit more on either side, it kind of flutters in the wind. Anyway, it does remind me of falling leaves. So even if they can't move, I thought that was still pretty to have them kind of suspended there on just this thread, which I did get from Paper Pumpkin. Let me grab it. It is this linen thread, so this was not part of the suite, but from a Paper Pumpkin, and the linen thread is still sold, so that's something customers could still buy. So there's that thank you card. The next, even more stepped up, using even more of the suite card, was our third project, and that's this one here. You will notice one retired product on this, and that is the Delicata Celestial Copper, I think is what it's called. Metallic ink from last year's holiday catalog. So that can no longer be purchased through Stampin' Up, but I still had mine from last year, so we used that for the sentiment, which is through a die cut circle. So it's actually on the inside of the card. And that was using the stitch shaped dies. I think the second largest circle from that. But of course you could use a different size. But once again, I punched for them the images from the designer series paper, which are in the gold and the copper. I love that. The specialty designer series paper, right? Because it has the gold foils, or metallic foils, because it's gold and copper. But then I let them use the punches finally to punch out from that brushed metallic cardstock, I think is what it's called. Let me check, I have it here. And that comes in gold, copper, and brass, I think. I hope I'm getting that right. Why am I not seeing the name of that? Because I switched the packets back. So yes, it's the brushed metallic cardstock. And hopefully I'm right that it's gold, copper, and bronze. Correct me if I'm wrong. So I had them alternate. If it was a gold acorn from the DSP, they did a copper punch from the brushed metallic cardstock and alternated to get some variety. And then of course we used those acorn trinkets. That's what they're called, right? Oh, those are my favorite. That brushed copper and the metallic copper ribbon. As part of that ribbon combo pack, it also comes with the basket weave and mint macaron. That's the only thing we didn't use from the suite at this event. So yeah, I really enjoyed that card. And then this one we didn't make, but I did show them because our spinner card ended up just being a suspension or flutter card. I showed them this card using our gold
Memories and More cards, I think is what they're called, the Memories and More cards from the holiday catalog. So you get the gold envelope, and then you get the very vanilla and gold bordered card. This is that gold brushed metallic cardstock. This is one of the gold hoops from the, is it the Forever Greenery Suite? Sorry, I'm so in the holiday catalog that I'm just trying to get those names right. It's been a while since I've been back to the annual catalog, but those are in the annual catalog. I heat embossed with gold embossing powder the sentiment. Used some more of those punch outs from the DSP. And this is another paper pumpkin thread. I don't know if you can see it, but it has like gold thread running through the baker's twine. So this, hopefully it's been used maybe one too many times. I'm not sure it's going to work for you, but this is supposed to be a spinner card, and it did work once upon a time. We'll see how it goes tonight. Ready? Ooh, it did work. Okay, good. And you can see the back side. I mounted it on that same brushed metallic cardstock so that you didn't have like a bad side. It just looked good no matter what. At least I hope it does. So I showed them that to show them the possibilities of a spinner card and a few more of our products if they liked them. So there you go. And then last, that really should have been the pièce de résistance, but last but hopefully still not least, I made these little thank you cards that I'm going to deliver with the orders that I got from that event, because people did enjoy it and they placed orders, and that was exciting. So I just made them little thank you cards, 3x3 cards, using the coordinating colors, so the Cajun Craze and the Mint Macaron, and obviously more punch outs from the DSP. I love when you can use tools like punches and dies on our DSP. And that's it. And you've got my little brand stamp there on the bottom, Hannah Crafted Gifts. So I think that's everything I wanted to show you. Thank you all so much for watching. Again, please like, comment, feel free to subscribe, and as always, happy crafting.